Hello, Sense of Things. It's Jeff and Ron here with another weekly update on what's going on in the world today. We've got a lot of information about economics that we're going to cover, a little bit about the markets again, and coming out of the summer months, we're going into the Labor Day weekend in about a week here, and we certainly want to make sure we understand how the summer is finishing out. Ron, welcome to the show, buddy.
Good morning. Yeah, actually, we got some good stuff just from the past week. And then next week should be even more fun to see how the markets and geopolitically, the Jackson Hole speech is digested tomorrow. I think it's a big nothing burger, but it should be interesting to see because you know how it is. They're going to be hanging on every word, dissecting every word, throwing his speech into some AI window, trying to look for nuances. It's insane. Like we've been through this for the last 30
and
plus
the Twitter
years.
Algorithms, the Twitter algorithms will be all jumping all over the place, and
it'll be brutal. Although I think last night is our short term or immediate term blow off. I think we had our big short term blow off July 27th. And I think last night with NVIDIA earnings was just insane.
Yeah.
If you take a look, the whole market's reversed. So I think basically people are exiting positions, preparing for a humongous vacation week next week. And we'll see what happens in September and October, as we've talked about. But hey, I heard you found a pretty good pop culture story to chat about.
So an interesting thing for today, an interesting stat. August 24th is America's worst day for sick leave absences. Don't know why it's August 24th. We're close enough to Labor Day, but we're not quite there yet. It's the end of the summer. Don't know, but according to leave analysis by a leave management software provider, this is the sickest day of the year. The second sickest is February 13th, which is right prior to Valentine's Day, which I can figure out. Yes, that makes sense, but I don't get the August 24th.
Maybe it's just because it's probably a week to go before Labor Day weekend. There's a lot of reasons. February 13th is probably all the anxiety of guys trying to figure out what the hell their women actually want for Valentine's Day. And it isn't always necessarily chocolates, which sometimes pisses them off. So what can you do about that?
And running around town trying to find a gift and flowers at the last moment and everything else.
The other thing too, because this paragraph alludes to, it was the day after Super Bowl this past year, which was a tough day for me when my Eagles lost. But you know what? A lot of people, I've heard this for years, which is the stupidest thing, saying that the Monday after Super Bowl should be a federal holiday. I don't know. You never heard that before? I've been hearing that for years.
Yeah.
So
well, I think it depends on who's in office at that point and who their team is, but yes.
Oh, I've been hearing it at least 20 years. I've been hearing that it should be, and it's just ridiculous.
I don't get it. Like I said, it was the weirdest thing I've seen in a long time. Like, how do you just pick that one out of the hat? Everybody just decides to be sick today. So apparently many of you are listening to this and will be listening to this from your sick deathbeds. And we wish you well, and we wish you feeling better. So.
Yeah, while you're lying down with the laptop on your belly, just hit the subscribe button. We appreciate that.
While you're at it, make sure you do that because we appreciate that. And if you're sick today, here's a challenge for you. If you are sick today, hit that little like button because we want to know if you're out there. We won't hold it against you or tell your boss.
There we go.
Cool, Ron. You dug into a few things this week. So where do you want to kick off?
Well, we'll get to the LEI, the leading economic indicators, in a second. We showed it last week, but it had just come out that morning, and I really didn't have a chance to digest it. But I thought something that was interesting, because I know we're a bit of an echo chamber, and I've said that 1,000,002 times here. One of the interesting things I've talked about was credit card balances, but I happen to have seen this in a couple of different sources over the last week, and this was very interesting to me because credit card balances just breached the $1 trillion level. It was $925 billion in December when I first posted it in my market outlook. But this was interesting because the top graph here shows all bank credit card delinquencies, which is roughly about 2.8%. Now, quick footnote, asterisk. In the last 2 weeks, many banks both regional, started about 2-3 weeks ago, were downgraded, and some of the large banks were downgraded. In addition to, we talked about this before, the U.S. credit briefly downgraded to AA plus.
Mhm.
So here's something interesting. If you take out the top 100 banks, the credit card delinquencies go from 2.8% to 7.5%.
Okay.
I know when we spoke about the credit card balances either approaching or about to breach or breaching the $1 trillion limit, and just thinking about what the amount of interest that these credit cards companies are collecting. And if remember, we showed that one graph about 3 podcasts ago that the average credit card interest rate went from 22%, it jumped to an average of 26 to 28%. Now add in the delinquency rate on that, and we're in deep blue here.
Yeah.
I just don't see how this continues. I can't see how many of these banks, what are they going to do? They're going to write off these delinquencies? Are they going to wait for them to go to bankruptcies and then eventually wait 3, 5, 7, 10 years for those delinquencies to pay off? And also, I don't understand this. Maybe you could help me get to the bottom of this logic. Why is the delinquencies on the non-100 top banks almost 5 percentage points higher than all the banks aggregate, which means that the top 100 banks are under 8%, probably under 1%, which also means the non 100 banks have got to be over 10%.
Yeah. Well, and I think the biggest thing is I think there's so much competition in that industry that, you've basically got those top 100 banks. That's the big money center banks. And I would include the Capital Ones in that area. But you've got so many online banks now that are out there and they're issuing credit, and they don't really do mortgages or anything like that. They don't do commercial loans and all those. So that's really the only opportunity they have to make money there. So that's going to be I would say a larger portion of those non-100 money center banks. This is basically where Capital One came from. They were a non-entity a few years ago, and then they just went crazy with focusing on, okay, we're gonna make ourselves what I would consider a little bit more legitimate by opening local locations and all that type of stuff. And they really became the top of that, what I would consider lower tier debt that's out there, where it's very high interest debt. They had very easy lending standards. And I think a lot of these are just a lot of the internet banks and non-traditional brick and mortar type banks that are out there that are issuing credit.
Well, this is what I'm trying to digest here, and there's no way we would ever get it right. We'd probably have a better chance of throwing a dart against a dartboard to figure it out. The gray shaded areas are when recessions occurred. And you could see when there were spikes in the delinquencies, that's when recessions occurred. You could see that on the chart here. We're higher now than we have been in 30 years. My point is, what is the timing of this lag effect when this blows up?
But you're looking at, we're higher in the non-US or the non-100 banks. We're actually not higher in the big money center banks, the top 100 banks. We're actually, yes, it is peaking up. And I think that is a concern. I think it's a major concern that the only thing that's keeping people alive at this point is that there's lots of jobs that are out there. That dries up. And I think we're in a major issue when it comes to that. And that's going to affect not only financials and the banks down the road, but it's also going to affect mortgages and the real estate market and all. It's just a bunch of things that could potentially come as a result of that. But until there's a breaking point in the hiring side of things, I think people are going to keep going until they can't at this point. It looks like that's what they're doing.
And the only other thing I was thinking of, you're absolutely right, because I've been saying the same thing about unemployment has got to spike before something significantly breaks. But at some point, aren't there credit limits going to be to the end of going to be breached? What are the credit card companies going to do? Keep extending credit on people that are making minimum payments?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. Like I said, there's been so many people that it's an interesting conundrum though, because you see credit card debt going up like crazy, but then as of recent, we've seen the national savings rate going up, which is, I don't get it. I'm like, okay, it's like there's a two-tiered economy there. There's people that have stretched themselves to the limit and they're on the breaking point. And then there's people that are like, hey, I'm hunkering down. I think things are getting worse and I'm hunkering down. And honestly, it's a heartening behavior that I feel that people have learned their lesson. Because if you look at all these, if you look at 2001 to 2003, you look at 2008 to basically 2010, our savings rates were just absolutely atrocious and they were going down at those times. So it's an interesting thing. It's a weird conundrum this time where people are going, okay, I'm just going to hunker down. I'm going to start putting some more money into savings, which could hurt the service economy because we live on a consumer economy. And if the consumer starts to pull back and put into savings, that can have some trickle down effect into the stock market.
Yeah, it's interesting. All right, let's move on.
Yeah.
So this was the LEI from last week, and you and I love this. I've been tracking this not as often as I probably should have, but I've been tracking this at least 15 years that I could think of. And we got such a divergence now in the year over year versus the real GDP. And again, what is the lag effect here? What is the catalyst? We could look at this chart all day, but I think it's the next chart, the next two charts here. This one kind of also shows too, facts don't lie here. Just about, this is a conglomerate, right? A compendium of a lot of different types of factors going into basically measuring the overall strength and health of the economy. But when we really dig down here, and it's not that it's because it's at a negative, right? Let's dig down into each of these things. We're not going to have time to go through all of these. The biggest one that stands out to me is the ISM, right? The ISM orders here, this basically is for manufacturing. And this is just showing how much manufacturing is slowing. You and I know this going back into the end of last year, beginning of this year, when we started to see a bunch of layoffs happen in the tech industry. And typically you see it in big industrial names, mainly manufacturing. When that slows, right, there's that trickle effect to the rest of the economy. So I don't know what your thoughts here or what other numbers stand out to you.
ISM is huge for here. And I think it's backed up, and I haven't watched it as much currently, but you started to see this in Philly Fed, New York Fed, a lot of the East Coast Feds. You started to see manufacturing slowing really significantly, the manufacturing indexes in those kind of East Coast areas, not so much down south, but the big ones up north. I think Richmond too was showing massive, reduction in the manufacturing indexes. So I think this all kind of sets up, and it says, okay, I think there's some uncertainty because of a lot of the just crazy regulations that just keep flying out of Washington, specifically in the administration. It's just, okay, now we're going to focus on this, and we're going to focus on this, and it's all climate change and all this. And they're throwing a bunch of a lot of these regulations down. And I think it's making the manufacturing sector, and really downstream from them, their orders, all of a sudden these guys are like, okay, guys and gals, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what's coming on. So I think it's partially economy. I think it's partially the administration just being on this tear of just going crazy with all these different regulations that, yes, we've got to worry about the climate, but you know what? We can't worry about we can't administer every single thing in my house. I'm not going to sit there with a wash tub and a blender that's connected to a bicycle. I'm sorry. We have to have electricity. Yeah, we have to. I actually enjoy having my dishwasher. I like to cook on a gas stove. I'm a cook. I love that. So screw you, Washington. Stay out of my house and stop doing all this stuff. So I think it's a combination of both of those, I would say, that are having some effect here. And I think it's trickling down, but I think also a lot of these guys just don't know what's coming. And when they don't know what's coming, they tend to just back off and say, all right, we're going to slow up manufacturing a little bit, which if that continues, and it's the most significant part of this, these non-financial components are negative 2.7, and that's consumer expectations and ISM new orders. That's a big part because we're a consumer economy and we have some manufacturing in this country. If both of those start pulling back, a lot of this other stuff is going to start pulling back as well.
Yeah, I agree. And the other one that we've also talked about too is the 10-year bonds, right? The North Star, which on Tuesday hit 4.34. I think it was 4.33 or 4.44. Then it went down to 4.2. These swings in the bond market is not good. But when you're checking out the rate spread of the 10-year versus the Fed rate, the negative 0.9 basis points is a huge move. Month after month. This just means that people don't like what's in the future and they're investing short term, less than a year, basically. This is what they're focused in on. And you and I will follow it every now and then about the anticipation of rate decreases. Rate decreases, we're going to get one in either September or November. And based on what comes out tomorrow, they've already said higher for longer. Why aren't people listening to what the Fed is saying instead of saying, oh, no, there's going to be some catalyst? Don't count on a catalyst. Just listen to what they're saying. Inflation rate has got to get down to the 2.5 level before it's even a consideration to lower rates even a quarter of a point, which in my opinion, I think is next summer or maybe Q3 sometime next year. So I think that all of this is ominous just for the overall market in the next 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, and the Fed tends to not like to act in either direction during a presidential election year. So we're going into 24. They don't like to do either direction during those time periods because what's seen as affecting the markets, which can affect the presidential outcome and all that. So it is very unlikely that we're going to see much action next year out of them. I don't think we're going to see a lot of interest rate raises during the year, but I really don't think we're going to see very much, if any, drops in the interest rates at that point, because they're going to let it roll out. And then, all right, whoever's in office, then that gives us cover to be able to do whatever we need to from that point on.
Yeah. And I truly believe that, when we're looking at everything, and I guess this is just more of a thing to our viewers here, as much as maybe you're listening to us talk about what we feel, and this is just pure opinion. When you're watching financial news, whichever network it is, when you're looking at financial articles or whatever source you're looking at, that's the issue. Consider the source. Because when you talk about people that talk about a soft landing, a no landing, or whatever, you got to think about, why are they saying that, right? Are they not looking at the facts? Now, I've also heard this for the last year. The potential recession is the most anticipated recession in history. Okay, yeah, everybody looks at the facts, they understand what's coming, but hey, there's that FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. The market's going up. Now it's sideways and going down. What are you doing to protect yourself if you're looking to retire in the next 3 to 5 years? Or if you just went into retirement and you were still growth heavy in your portfolio allocation. So all these factors come into play here as far as what your consideration should be moving forward. So when you're listening to these pundits on TV, right, they don't know your situation, right? They're just talking either about their book, about the people they represent, right? Maybe what board of a fund they're on, right? They may have conflicting factors that you're not aware of. So you really need to sift through this, because a lot of what they're saying, in my opinion, it is about as clear as mud.
Yeah. Well, and the thing, I was listening to somebody on one of the financial news channels the other day, and I'm thinking to myself, dude, you had an answer for every possible situation today. 2 weeks ago, I said the market was down. Okay, the market's down today. So you're right. The market was going to be down. You had a 50-50 chance of choosing it at that point. I heard this one time. I heard this from a fund manager, and he was talking about analysts, and he goes, any time an analyst goes out there, they have a 50-50 shot of being right. So they say the stock or the market's going to go up or it's going to go down. And if they're right twice in a row, all of a sudden they're a market pundit. If they're right 3 times in a row, they're a guru and everybody listens to them. Now they can be wrong the whole rest of the time, but if they're just right during that time period, I take it as a grain of salt. Take what we say as a grain of salt. But what I would say is we're here to really just report on what's going on. And if you see if you're looking at this and saying, hey, I'm uncomfortable with the markets, and to Ron's point, hey, I'm coming up to retirement here in a couple of years, this ain't the time to go crazy and swing for the fences. This is the time to start now, not going the opposite direction and saying, well, I'm going to take everything and dump it in cash and I'm going to sit here and wait. No, you want to start building a portfolio that sets up your retirement so that you know where your retirement income is going to come from for those first, let's say, 5 years. And then the rest of it is money that you're going to go into retirement, let's say at 66, you got a pretty good chance of being around at least another 25 years at that point. And you should think about that. And we're going to go through multiple market cycles in that time period.
I think I might have mentioned this before, but I think it's worth repeating. So if I ever have another career, if I ever get reincarnated, I want to come back as one of 3 things: a meteorologist, an economist, or a stock analyst. Because I could be wrong more than 50% of the time and keep my job almost forever.
Absolutely.
As long as I talk a good game.
Yeah, if I can just talk a good game and I can be out there just constantly babbling.
And get one home run every now and then.
If I get a home run at a major market event, I'm set for life.
I'll ride that surfboard for a long time.
That's exactly right. I don't even need to show up to work. I'm just going to ride the surfboard and do a monthly newsletter that I put out saying I predicted the most.
That'll be on the tombstone.
Yeah, I predicted the most obvious recession of the entire world in 2023, 2024, and I'll be set. So we have this opportunity, Ron, because we've said it's coming. At some point when there is a recession, we can say we predicted this.
No, I agree. And you know what? Before it's officially a recession by economic standards, will be the time to leg out of the short-term fixed income stability strategy and start legging into the growth strategy, because you're through compounding and everything else, you're only going to come out ahead on the other side of it. Whether the recession is short-lived or it's deeper and wider than we expect, it's not going to matter. But we can't pick the bottoms. But if you're legging out throughout the entire recession process, you're only going to come out ahead looking great over the next 2 to 3 years. Yeah. So we shall see.
Yeah. Like I said, but prepare. Time to sit down with your advisors, look at what your portfolio looks like, and then say, hey, I'm going to retire in a few years, or I'm not retiring in a few years. So what do I need to be doing? And those times when the market's down, I'm a big proponent of legging money in as you go. So dollar cost average in throughout 100%. Your life. And whether it's up or down, you're going to do well over the long run, because you're taking the thought process out and the timing out and everything else.
Yep. Next week should be interesting once we hear about the Jackson Hole and see how volatile the market will be on the biggest vacation in the week coming up.
Absolutely. Those of us down here, we're already past all that, and we're on to the fall at this point. And the fact that it's been 100 degrees every day, we finally broke the back of that this week. I don't have to hear the news constantly talk about the 44 days of 100+ degree heat at this point. So
we had over 150 degrees here, 150 days of better than 100 degrees here through this summer. Although I got to tell you, it didn't seem that bad except for a few big humid days. But other than that, it wasn't a horrible summer. Last summer was bad because the humidity was up. But welcome to the Southwest, right?
Yeah. Did Hurricane Hillary and the pantsuit come whipping through Arizona at all?
We got some rain, but I got to tell you, it cooled off. It felt like fall weather here for 3 days. It was wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah.
And we sent you another hurricane the other side of it, man. You're welcome.
Thank you. It was good. As long as we get a little bit of reprieve, it's all good.
Yeah, I live in the one place in Central Texas that did not get a drop. Oh, we got 45 drops of rain, that immediately just evaporated off of our back deck. That was our
course.
hurricane experience.
Of course. And now you upped your rainfall numbers for the year.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, or for the month, we actually had some measurable rain, which was not even measurable. But folks, thank you. We do this for you, and it's our opportunity every week to come together, share what we've seen out there. Certainly, one, go back to the beginning of this. If you are deathly ill on your couch right now, hit that little up arrow to let us know you're out there. Hit that little up thumb and make
Or
sure
if you took the day
subscribe
off and are on the beach.
Yeah, if you're on the beach, when you watch this after you come back, just give us an up thumb too, because we want to see that as well. We will see you guys back here next week. Thanks a lot and see you next time.